Happy video day, guys. So for today's video, I am so excited because I got a palette that I've been dying for. The second that they said that this was going to be releasing from Natasha Denona, I was so excited because I'm a huge Natasha Denona fan and I usually really like her formula. There was something about this palette, it totally drew me in almost as much as the gold palette drew me in, and that's this one right here. So this is the Sunrise palette from Natasha Denona and it looks like this, guys. It is a beautiful palette and I am so excited to be giving you guys my first impressions thoughts on this palette. There's a lot of stuff to go over about this palette and I am super excited about a few changes that Natasha Denona has made, and I think that you guys are going to be really excited about them too. So if you are new to the channel, my name is Christina Brooke and this is the Glam Ranch. What I do on this channel is I talk to you guys about makeup all from my little ranch. So if you guys like new makeup releases and first impressions and all that good stuff, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you guys will find my channel again. I've got a lot of stuff to say, guys, and I think you really want to watch this video. Alright guys, so the first thing that we've got to talk about is the outer packaging of this product. What do we get for the money that we're paying? What does it look like? So even though this palette is a smaller version of some of her other palettes, which we will get to in a little bit, you are still getting a lot of similarities. So when you do unpackage the product, you do get it in this plastic container and it's very similar to her Safari palette and it has like that same look. It's that plastic hard case, which I actually really appreciate. It's super travel friendly and it's very, very sturdy. It also has the little divots on the back so that you guys can go ahead and poke out these shadows if you are a makeup artist or if you want to create your own Z palette, or if you're going on vacation and you want to take some of these colors along with you but you don't want to take the whole palette. So that is a super handy thing that Natasha Denona does in her larger palettes. So to me, it's so exciting to see that she actually kept that in the design of this smaller version of her larger palettes, because that is something that she could have cut a corner with. She could have taken this little aspect out, but she did keep it in, and I think that that is incredible. So besides that, you do get a large size mirror. This is such a good compact, very well designed. You got all your colors, no wasted space. You've got a beautiful size mirror you could totally see your entire face in. You can take this with you traveling, and I think the packaging of this product gets an A+. I love Natasha Denona's packaging and I am just excited to see that this smaller version has a very similar feel to her larger palettes, which I think is incredible. So we've opened up this baby and you guys see how absolutely stunning the inside of this palette is. It is a beautiful palette. So she does call this her Sunrise palette because she is saying that it is like a sister to her Sunset palette. So her Sunset palette does look like this. I actually never purchased her Sunset palette because it is a $129 eyeshadow palette and it wasn't one that I really felt like I needed. So that one I actually skipped out on, and I've seen it multiple times at Sephora and I've had multiple opportunities to pick it up, and every time I just say, I don't know, it was just missing something for me. So from looking at this palette, guys, if you guys do own the Sunset palette, these are very different. I mean, the Sunset palette, like I've said, I've seen it multiple times. This one goes more into like the burgundy kind of tones, whereas the Sunset palette is staying more towards like the true reds, the browns, whereas this one is getting more into like the dark burgundies and actually very reminiscent of a Sunrise. So I do see a pretty nice difference between these two palettes. So I do think that they can complement each other. I don't think between these two palettes you're going to be getting anything that's going to be like redundant, in other words. So I think that that's a huge plus. Now I have to tell you guys that the color story in this palette is insanely beautiful. So this palette is including 15 brand new shades to the Natasha Denona line. You're not getting any repeated shades here, so that is awesome for you guys to know. So in this palette, you're getting mattes, you're getting duochromes, and you're getting metallics. You're getting beautiful, beautiful finishes in here. Inside of this palette, you are getting 8 shimmery duochrome or metallic finishes, and then you're also getting 7 matte finishes. Honestly, guys, the shades in here are insane. But we're gonna get to that like pretty soon. So guys, this palette is going to cost you guys $65 US. Yes, that is right, $65 for a Natasha Denona 15-pan eyeshadow palette. And if you're wondering why is it so cheap? Why are her other palettes so expensive? Well, I have a few things to tell you. I do have the Safari palette. I also have the gold palette. Both of these are $129. That is very pricey for an eyeshadow palette, but we've always been told Natasha Denona quality warrants the price tag as well as her pan size, which is something that some people overlook. Natasha Denona typically puts 2.5 grams of product into all of her eyeshadow pans, which is a lot of product. Most brands don't put that much eyeshadow into an eyeshadow palette, which kind of warrants out the price tag of the $129 eyeshadow palettes. If you guys want to know anything more about like that calculation, I do have a video talking all about it. I'll put it up on the cards. You guys can understand a little bit more of why the price kind of makes sense for Natasha Denona. But now when we're talking about her $65 palettes, there is some reasons that it is $65. Now, one of the reasons is not the packaging. If you guys see the larger pan palette and the smaller one, the packaging is very similar. They're both plastic. They both have those little things in the back to take out the thing. Each one of them has the nice size mirror. The packaging is basically exactly the same. You're getting it made in Italy. Both of these are made in Italy. This palette is made in Italy. It's not made anywhere else. It's made the same as her larger pan palettes. The difference that you're gonna get here, this is a much smaller palette in grams of product that you're receiving. So inside of the Sunrise palette, you are getting like around 1.2-ish grams of product, whereas like I said, her larger palettes usually have 2.5 grams. So you're basically getting half the product inside of these palettes, kind of warranting half the price. So the only other palette that I can kind of see is like a little bit of similar price tag would be the Huda Beauty New Nude palette. For this palette, you are paying $65. There is 18 shades in here, kind of giving you roughly like 1 gram-ish for each pan in here. Whereas this one, you're getting 15 shades for 1.2-ish grams. And the total weight of this one is 19.7 grams. And the total weight of this one is 19.25 grams. So these are very, very similar. You're just getting a little bit more shades in this one, but the pans are probably a little bit smaller. But at the end of the day, they almost have the same amount of product and they're both around the same price tag. So overall, I'm actually thinking that this is a pretty damn good price for being Natasha Denona. This is starting to look like a really exciting palette to me. And now we're gonna get into how I applied the makeup today, and we're gonna talk about this palette. And guys, I have to say, I was so excited applying this palette because there's so many aspects of this palette that remind me so much of the larger pan palettes, and I feel like the formula is so similar. So when I went into this look today, what I did was I first went into this color right here called Morgan, and I just used that one to kind of put all over my lid as my main transition shade. I just kind of wanted to get a feel for how it felt on the lid, and I love these colors. Like, this is like one of my favorite kind of transitional shades. So I was so excited to see that there was this type of peachy tone in here. I think it blended really nice. I love the way it looked. It gave me a lot of pigment, more than I was even expecting. And then just to kind of darken out the look, I went into this color Jasper. Now Jasper, what I did is I kind of focused it on the sockets of the eye, kind of blended it out, and I kind of wanted to just see how I can create like kind of like a sunset look, but I didn't want to go so sunsetty. I was kind of trying to grab into like the darker tones in here just to see how they would blend, because you can have real big problems with darker tones. So I kind of blended that out onto the lid, and I really love the way it blended. So that was another matte that was extremely creamy and blended amazing. So then I went into this color called Glory. Now this one has a little bit more of like a hot pink look to it, so I was kind of interested to see how it would apply on the lid. And I have to say the pigment on this one is super strong as well. I went ahead and blended that one into the outer corner, kind of putting it a little bit on the lid. I was trying to decide what kind of look I wanted to go for. I wanted to do something that kind of transitioned, but I wasn't sure exactly what colors. I feel like the color was so vibrant. It really did a lot of punch for the eye, and I was super excited at this point. This palette was reminding me a lot of the Gold palette, which I absolutely love, and a lot of the Safari palette, which is another palette I totally love. So after I did that, I just decided to jump into this color Aster, and I just kind of used this one on top of the pink and also brought it into the corner. This is one of those shades that doesn't have like a full pigment, but it has like a lot of speckles to it, so it works really nice if you put it over on top of the matte. This does the most beautiful duochrome look. This actually kind of shifts into kind of like a blue. It's like a purple then a blue, and it's so pretty. And I put that one all over. I actually wanted to put it even more places, and I was like, damn, I didn't know you're gonna be so pretty. So I kind of put that all over the center of the lid and kind of blended it in. And then I wanted to use another color because we're trying out this palette. So I jumped into this color called Awakening. Now Awakening actually had more of a pinky undertone than I thought it was going to. I actually thought it was gonna be a little bit more champagne, but it actually has this beautiful pink undertone, like a nudish pink. It was beautiful. I don't know if I would have put the two colors together again, but I do love the way that this color came off on the lid, and I just can't wait to use this with some of the other tones in here because that color is impeccably beautiful. And then finally, just to add a little bit of pop, I went into this color Agate right here. Oh my God, guys, this color is insanely gorgeous. It gives you a real nice pop. And it is the color that I actually have in the inner corners. It actually comes off more of like a yellow gold. Then you can actually even tell in here. Here it looks more like it would be a little bit more of a plain color, but when you put it on, it just really makes your eyes look like you have like this yellow beam. It's one of those colors that it tricks you in the pan. I said, oh, this might be a little boring, and on the lids is insane. Now I did try putting it on dry. Didn't feel like it did that much. When I wet the brush is when I really feel like this one really adhered the best. So I think for some of the shades, you might want to wet your brush for them. With most Natasha Denona palettes, I like applying with the metallics with my fingers or with a wet brush. Those are usually my preferences. And then for the lower lash line, I wanted to use this color here called Carnelian. I wanted to use this yellow. So I kind of just brushed the mustard yellow on the lower lash line just to give a little bit of pop and to try a little bit more colors for you guys. This is extremely pigmented. It's such a cool, like orangey mustard color. This color is insane. I love it. I can't wait to put this all over my lid too. And then just to kind of like darken things up, I went into Clove. I went ahead and kind of like stamped it into my lower lash line. And then I also added a little bit to the outer edges just to kind of like give that little dimensional pop that I really wanted. And put on some mascara, and I was done, and I am extremely impressed. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, if you guys are even hesitant on this palette, I'm gonna tell you guys 150%. This palette is amazing. This palette has the same exact quality to me as the gold palette. I even feel like it has even better quality than the Safari palette. Even though the Safari palette has great quality, there's something so amazing inside of this palette that reminds me so much of how much I fell in love with the gold palette. So if you guys love the gold palette from Natasha Denona and you think it's like your favorite like eyeshadow palette ever, this is the same exact formula, and I am so happy that she went ahead and made a smaller palette, but she kept true to her formula. She didn't change it. I know we had some issues before in the past with Natasha Denona coming out with minis, and a lot of people, including myself, don't feel like some of her minis have the same exact formula, but this palette, she did not do that. This palette is the same formula. It's an amazing formula. Every single one of the shadows that I used worked great. I feel like the blending was impeccable. I feel like the pigmentation is insane. So guys, I'm not even gonna drag out what I think here. I'm gonna tell you guys 100% yes. This palette is beautiful. I love the way it looks on my eyes. I would totally say that this is totally worth a shot. And what I do love about this too is if you're somebody who's afraid of color, there is enough colors in here for you to do more dyed down looks. All of these colors around this edge that I didn't even jump into are very soft. You can mix a few of these soft shades with the darker shades and still come out with an eye look that is so subtle that you can wear it during the day, you can wear it to work. I don't feel like this is one of those palettes that's gonna be hard for people to use or hard for people to wear, but what I do love too is it has enough color in it that if you really wanna venture into some fun color for your eyes, you do have enough colors in here to do that. And I do honestly think that if you have the Sunset palette, this is gonna be a nice complement to it. I definitely think so. So what I'm gonna do for you guys right now is I'm gonna include for you guys the swatches of this palette so you guys can decide for yourself if this is a color selection that you guys are interested in. All right, so now that we've gone over that I'm completely in love with the palette, I've shown you guys the swatches, we've talked about the price, we've talked about the packaging. Now let's see if there's any similarities to any of her other palettes. So this one right here is the Safari palette, and this one right here is the new Sunrise palette. So I'm gonna see if I can see any colors in here that I think may be similar. So this one right here is actually from the Sunrise palette. It's called Morgan. So this one here is from the Safari palette, and this is the color Amaraha, and this color right here is Desert Date. These are the most similar colors between the two palettes, which honestly Desert Date is probably the closest, but the undertone is still very different. This one right here is the color Jasper from the Sunrise palette, and this one right here is the color Tribe from the Safari palette. In reality, in person, they're maybe very similar. They probably would look very similar on the eyes, but they still do have a little bit of a difference of an undertone. This one right here is Clove from the Sunrise palette, and this one right here is Masahi from the Safari palette. So those are the most similar colors between the two palettes. Other than that, all of the colors are very different. And I will tell you that I will say that I think that the Sunrise palette is even more creamy than the Safari palette. That's my opinion. All right, so my gold palette's a disaster because I use it a lot. But as you guys can see, these two don't really have too many similarities. The only one would be the mustard, and really the mustard is very different. I'll just swatch it so you guys can see. This is the yellow from the Sunrise palette, super different. This is the Sunrise, this is the gold palette, and that is the closest you can get in the yellows in these two palettes. So those two are extremely different. Like, there is absolutely no similarity between those two. So in the rest of the Natasha Denona palettes that I own, there is this one from the Holiday. And honestly, the only color that would be similar would be this one right here in the middle called Burnt Terracotta. Now, Burnt Terracotta is one that is pretty similar. So this one here is Burnt Terracotta from the Holiday palette. These three are just very similar colors. There's this color right here, the first one, which is called, I believe it's called Nude. It's beautiful, like shimmery. Oh my God, it's so pretty. Inside the Sunrise palette, there's the color Laurel, which is a very similar color, but it has more of a bright pinky undertone. The other one has more of a mauve undertone. You guys can see they're similar colors, but they are very different at the same time. So for that palette, that's about it that really kind of like matches. If we jump into the Mini Lila palette, which is this one right here, honestly, I don't really think that there's too much that could actually, like, you would think that this one would have more that would match because it is kind of like the mauve family. But if you guys kind of see, this one's more purple. So the only color would be that one in the middle. That's very purple. I don't think we're gonna see anything that purple. I'm gonna try the color Clove from the Sunrise palette just to see. It's a little bit similar. It's not on the dot. It's a little bit darker, whereas the Lila one is a little bit more purple, as you guys can see. The Lila is more purple than that one. And then the shimmery shade in here, if anything, would be similar to these, but even this one has more of like a gold undertone, as you guys can see. Finally, let's try the Sunset, the Mini Sunset palette to see if there's anything similar. Now, there is one color in here that looks very similar to me, but we'll see how it looks swatched. That is this color right here. That color, I believe, is called Apollo. So this is the color Apollo, which actually it has a different undertone. And then we're gonna compare it to this color right here called Phlox. They're very similar, but still Apollo has a little bit more of an orange undertone, and it's not as saturated. You can tell the difference between the formulas between these two. This Mini Sunset palette didn't have the best formula compared to this one. It's just like, even swatching it, you can see the difference. Another one that might be a little bit similar would be this color right here, which is more of like a gold. This color right here from the Sunrise palette. Yeah, it's a little bit similar, but it still has a different undertone. Between all of those palettes that I own from Natasha Denona, these are the most similar shades. But I have to tell you guys, as a whole, there's no palette that I see here that has like a lot of similar colors to this palette. This palette's very unique and it's very beautiful. I actually even think that for being the Mini Sunset palette, it complements this really well as well. So I can see how the large Sunset palette would complement it. So to me, guys, this palette is really worth it. It is absolutely stunning. It performs amazing. Like I said, it performs better than a lot of the other Natasha Denona palettes that I have. It reminds me a lot of the gold palette, which was one of my favorite formulas from her. So I definitely think that this is a go out and buy it, guys. I don't think that anybody's going to regret this. So thank you guys so much for watching. And if you guys like this video and you guys like me, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you find my channel again. And yeah, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.